Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Matt Murphy Show. I am not Matt Murphy. I'm Cameron Smith. Matt will be filling in for Brian on the drive later this afternoon. But for the next 3 hours, it's you, me, and a bunch of screens and microphones. Ken Weaver is keeping us informed. He was actually telling me about his concerns with the Georgia paper balloting because, Georgia's folks struggle to count. So, we'll see how that goes. And we've got Jeff Malinoff on the board, also known because of Matt Murphy as KGB.
Yes.
And so...
Brother Cam, I don't have concerns of Georgians being able to vote. You brought that up, too.
I must have misheard that. But, hey, look, guys, counting is difficult.
The SEC rivalry boils over to this show for sure.
Yeah, it does. It does. And, my beloved Crimson Tide is playing the Georgia Bulldogs after this bye week. I will be there. And so...
Is it in Tuscaloosa?
It is.
Oh, okay.
If I can get a little rib in here and there, I'm going to do it.
I was expecting Matt Murphy to bust through the door going, listen, pal.
Yes, but, he's not here, so I can say those things on his show. It's hard for folks because, and look, I can't talk smack about the Vols this year. That offense looks super powered.
Goodness.
I see that, and I'm like, ooh, that's the team actually I'm concerned about. I mean... I prefer 15 years of Vol defeat, but wow.
The tide is turning.
The tide does seem to be turning in a positive way right now. That defense looks good. I'm excited. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It doesn't get better for me than a nice, cool evening and a football game. If any of y'all who know, as I fill in here and as I write over at the Tennessean, I love football. I'm a football coach for the Triple B 10U Stars over in Nolensville. And I've got to give my hats off before we get started on today to the Clarksville Screaming Eagles. Their Triple B team, oh my goodness. We got a woodshed-style butt whooping from the Clarksville Screaming Eagles. They've got a quarterback and a receiver and a running back that, man, over-the-shoulder fade down the field at 10U is pretty incredible to watch. And
they had a fade work.
Yeah,
they accomplished the most unsuccessful play in football.
Yeah, they did.
That's impressive.
They could do it all. But we have to weigh in. For those of y'all who are uninitiated in youth football, you got to weigh in typically. Every game, everybody weighs in. And if you're above a certain weight, you can't run the ball. So
I don't like that.
The Clarksville Screaming Eagles had 3 or 4 excellent players that were in that 113, 114 range. So I'm just saying, if there are some pizzas that show up while the Clarksville Screaming Eagles are practicing, it's probably me because I want to help those kids grow well. And,
here's your steak. Eat it.
Steak, pizza, cheeseburger, whatever, man. But excellent, well-coached, classy football team, well-disciplined. Really impressed by the Clarksville Screaming Eagles. We got Lebanon coming up this week, and so I am very excited to be yet another Saturday where we get to play youth football. You got high school football. My beloved Nolensville Knights are playing at Franklin High School tonight. It's going to be a good game. You got 2 good teams. Going to be a good showdown. I love it. Like I said, best time of year. If you're not going to some football game, I don't care if you got kids or not. Go check it out. That's a great way to make community.
Let's reiterate. If you don't have kids, but just support them. Don't be the guy in the corner just being weird.
Yeah, don't always. I understand our politics is completely weird across the board, but when it comes to our community, just show up, support the team.
Absolutely.
Be there, encourage one another. I mean, it has reminded me that there are some things that matter to us more than the stuff that divides us. And that's not just a campy feel. It's go check it out.
Yeah.
Go spend time. Every now and then folks act the fool, but most of the time it's wonderful. And now you won't sweat off 10 pounds watching the football. So
yeah. I mean, watching all the kids play and seeing the parents support them, I mean, that's just a lovely sight. So, regardless what sport.
Some of y'all may disagree with me. I understand there's some mamas that don't love their kids playing tackle football, but I'm going to tell you that if the tackle football kids are going to save America. They're going to save America because they're resilient. They get knocked down. They get back up. They try hard things. We need more of this. I'm super excited about that. And I'd tell every last one of y'all, go support those teams. Go encourage them. Go support your high school football team. Go support the band, too. They're there at halftime. They're doing their thing. But the more we do that, the more we interact with each other, the better we're going to be because then we're not relying on some politician to fix everything.
Well, bands, honestly, go back to bands. Bands make it like that adds to the atmosphere. So
yes.
Always, bands are underappreciated, honestly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even a band, but when you go to a football game and hear that band play, you get that feeling. You get that goosebumps.
I'll tell you that the band at Nolensville High School is excellent, right? And the last couple of years, they've had like a solo person, and you can tell it's this guy that like long flowing hair, kind of rock star looking, gets out there and does like an electric guitar solo. And it feels like that scene in Stranger Things where it's like, yes, I am rocking out. This year it is a saxophone solo. It is super cool.
Saxophones, I for band purposes, saxophone over electric guitar. Electric guitar seems a little out of place for high school band.
Just so you know, electric guitar is never out of place. You should always have electric guitar all the time. I am desperately wanting one of my 4 boys, one of the beasts, to, once mama clears them on piano, like she has to say, you have done sufficient piano.
You have passed.
Right. Once she clears them, to get one of them that's like, I'd really want to play electric guitar. And I don't really, there's a lot of parents that are like, I'm not sure that I want that in my house. It's very loud and distracting. And I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up on like Metallica. So it's just like, let's go.
Favorite song of Metallica?
I always got pumped up to Fuel, but Enter Sandman's the
Enter
classic.
Sandman is one of my favorite songs of all time because I play it's in my gym list because and also watching Virginia Tech come out to Enter Sandman is one of the coolest things in all of football. It always gives me goosebumps. Yeah,
the hard one, across the board, the tough one for me to beat is AC/DC's Thunderstruck.
Yeah.
I mean, my 10-year-old loves that song, man. He's like, Dad, let's go play it.
Probably one of the greatest intros to a song of all time. Like the first bit of that song is probably one of the best.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's you get motivated. All that is to say, get outside, folks. Like go do that. Obviously, you need to make sure that you have a capacity to listen to Super Talk. But while you're there, have fun. Like life is too short for us to worry about everything. Go be a part of the community. So definitely do that. As I always start every show, I let you guys know where I'm coming from because if you haven't heard me before, you don't know me. I don't like these games where people are saying, "Oh, well, he's secretly this influencer that." I'll tell you exactly who I work for, what I do, and that way you can judge whether my opinions are valid or not. I think that's fair. So my day job is working at Thanks over in Franklin. It's a company that helps you grow business with gratitude. That's what they do. It's a weird thing to think about in this culture about the importance of gratitude, of just saying thanks and building your relationships. But it's really important. Guys over at Thanks know it super well. I'm also on the editorial board of the Tennessean. I'm a columnist over there for the papers across the state. So I write, some of you read, and I appreciate it. And yes, I am sort of on conservative island with a lot of the stuff I write, but I think that it's really important to go into what I would call legacy media outlets and make a compelling case for conservative ideas and to be consistent and do that. So I do that, and I love it when you guys reach out and say, hey, write about this, talk about this, help me find the topics that you care about most. I do that. I'm a partner in a media company. Several of y'all who've joined in on the conversation have watched Ballad of Davy Crockett. We've been making independent film. We engage Hollywood because they're putting influence in our homes. And a group of my friends and I decided, hey, let's see what we can do to impact that by creating content that families can watch with their kids and not be worried about it. Not be worried that there's some sinister narrative happening that, the whole find your truth. There's nothing objective. You're fine. Just go crazy, go wild, whatever works. Hedonism is not something that you'll find in the Ballad of Davy Crockett. It's sacrifice. It's family. It's, hey, this is a good story about somebody who's right here from Tennessee, somebody who's really got those connections to what really matters. And that's more of what we wanted. So those are the things that I do. Obviously, you can find me here. I'm in most Wednesdays with Matt, having a good time. But again, I think it's really important that you know where the voices that you're listening to, kind of what they do, where they are. And whenever you see me out and about, grab me. Say, hey, I hear you on the radio. Randy at Lifetime grabbed me I was on one of the workout machines. He said, hi, Cameron. And we got to talk. I think those relationships matter. It makes everything better. And the whole team here at Super Talk really does that well. Members Nutrition, Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. Join the conversation. It is Friday. I've got a list of things to talk about to keep you informed and entertained. I want to know what you want to talk about. I want to hear from you. It really, really matters. So we're going to get through our whole deck. We got a special treat. In the last hour, we've got Senator Hagerty joining us. And the real question I want to ask there of him, it's not election prognostications and all this stuff. It's what's next for conservatives? Win, lose, or draw in November, regardless of what happens, what are the things that our elected leaders really need to be going after, need to be getting under control? What are the policy ideas? We are so driven by election and narrative and emotion right now. We need to also be talking about ideas. I'm not anti-emotion. It's more of what are the ideas we need to pursue? And if we pursue them effectively, what does the future look like? I think we need to be a little more forward-looking. Senator Hagerty is going to help us do that. I'm very, very excited to have him. We've got a number of topics. Looking at Ukraine, man, they've got some cool drones. They got like battle tank drones, all this stuff. We've got all the fighting. It's been indefinitely. I have questions. I want to know what the game plan is. Whether you think we should be over there or not, fine. But what's the game plan? Because I think we're sort of about to have a half-pregnant moment where Ukraine's saying, hey, we want to go further and further into Russia. America, allow us. To which I say, man, guys, at this point, are we at war with Russia? And if we are, we need to be honest about what we're doing, and we need to have a game plan. That's been my major criticism all along, of there is no plan for what victory looks like, what ending our engagement looks like. And there are a number of paths to that, but I haven't heard anything. We'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the California law cracking down on election deepfakes. I've got some homework for you guys. I need construction of excellent memes about the campaign that we can send to California. We need to be consistent here as Tennesseans and help our friends and countrymen out in the oppressive dystopia of the left coast and make sure that we're still protecting free speech, because political expression is the lifeblood of our country. And if you can't make fun of politicians, I know they say they are exempting parody and all this stuff, but the lines are blurry, to put it mildly, and I'm quite concerned. So I think the least we can do is create some wonderful ideas and send them that way with our love. We've got this and other things that we're going to talk about. We're going to have fun. The next one we're going to talk about, though, is the reddest counties in the state of Tennessee. Who do you think's number one? We'll go through that when we come back. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
All right, still got that crash in Brentwood. It's causing problems just to the west of 65. It's Old Hickory Boulevard at Franklin Pike. And right now in our nation's capital, the Secret Service has just released another report highlighting failures before the Trump rally assassination attempt in July. That's coming up at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
This isn't a bad return. I'm thinking Hank Williams Jr. dinosaur. Like, we need to get more of the country roots in the transition. So I think that Matt and I were talking about that on Wednesday, about our favorite country songs and, you know, how music can soothe the savage beast, and talking about how he realized what he liked when he saw Dolly Parton. And I think that's fair. That's totally fair. I did promise you guys we were going to talk about the top reddest counties in the state of Tennessee. That could be taken a number of ways. The reddest, coming from my Southern heritage, could be our next. I'm talking about politically the most Republican-leaning counties in Tennessee. So I thought this was really interesting. I've got some guesses. I'm going to read these off to let you guys know. Matt said that he thinks in his hometown area in Northwest Tennessee, it's either Dyer, Lake, or Weakley County. Okay. I've got a Humphreys County, Trousdale County. We had KGB in there, said Williamson County. It might be Williamson. I think this is really interesting. We got a Clay County, Trousdale County number in here. I also, this is how small a world it is, folks. So when I was doing my football rundown of teams in the area, talking about the Nolensville Stars, one of the listeners chimed in and said, I did not know that you were Coach Cam, the same Coach Cam that's on the radio that I listen to. So yes, that is I. And, you know, Mason's a heck of a receiver.
What are the odds of that?
Pretty good.
It's just so funny to me that you were talking about. They're like, oh wait, you coach my kid.
Yeah. It's really interesting because y'all hear the voices of folks on the station. You hear Brian and Dan and Chris and Matt pretty regularly, right? And yet you don't see us as much. And the same for me as a columnist. I write columns. And most people, my name's David Cameron Smith. So it's basically an alias, David Smith. Like, I get on terrorist watch lists because it's that generic of a name. And when people see you in the community, because we're not big celebrities that you see like a Taylor Swift, everybody sees her, they know her. Like a lot of the country music stars, you see them, you know them. You're like, okay, I got to act cool now. Like, you know, then that's such a Nashville thing is I see them and I've got to act like I don't know who they are. In this case, a lot of people really don't, but the thing that I get more often than not, which is kind of funny, is your voice sounds really familiar. And I'm like, this seems kind of weird. And no, it's because you hear the voice. And then people who do know me make fun of me because they're like, your radio voice is different. I'm like, well, it's sort of more, I know what I'm talking about. It's not just a casual conversation. I'm trying to make sure people are informed and entertained and challenged. And it's a lot of fun. So please say hi when you see us there. Like we don't want to hide from you. It's not that we don't want you to know who we are. I love Nolensville. That is my community. That is my town. So whenever people say, hey man, what's up? It's great to hear you. Or even like you said this the other day and it was kind of weird. Like I didn't agree with you. Like great. I love to have those conversations. So please, please, please do. Okay. Reddest counties. I'm going to go from number 10 to number 1. And also, I've been trying to do this for a year now. Hashtag TN Politics. That's it. Hashtag TN Politics. If you want to see the whole list, the top 50 with all the information, it's right there. You just go to hashtag TN Politics. You'll see me. You can follow me on Twitter. And also, there's a link to the thing. Number 10, Cott County. The population, 36,186. In the 2020 election, 17% Democrat for Joe Biden, 81.8% Republican. Average popular vote split in the last 4 presidential elections, 20.9% Democratic, 77.3% Republican. I'll do the average just to make it easy because they have 2008 to 2020. I'll do the population and average. Number 9, Hardin County. Population 26,824. Average split 20.6% Democratic, 77.4% Republican. Number 8, Union County. Population 19,860. Split 20.9% Democratic, 77.5% Republican. 7, Johnson County. 20.4 to 77.7 with a population of 17,982. 6, Granger County. 19.3% Democratic, 78.9% Republican, 23,648. Here we go. Hancock County. These are the top 5 most Republican counties in Tennessee. 19.0% Democratic, 79.1% Republican. Number 4, Fentress County. 19.2% Democratic, 79.2% Republican. And most of these are around, a little under 20,000. That's kind of where they are. I'm going to list off the top 3 when we get back from this break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still dealing with that crash in Brentwood. It's just west of 65. It's Old Hickory Boulevard and Franklin Pike. Full forecast in 5 minutes. Right now in our nation's capital, the Secret Service has just released a report that false communication and drone failures before the Trump rally assassination attempt in July. Acting Director Ronald Rowe Jr. moments ago.
It's important that we hold ourselves accountable for the failures of July 13th. And that we use the lessons learned to make sure that we do not have another failure like this again.
At least 5 Secret Service officials involved in planning Trump's Butler rally have been put on administrative duty. The House, meanwhile, approved a bill today enhancing security for major presidential candidates.
The bipartisan measure passed the House unanimously.
The yeas are 405, the nays are 0.
The bill directs the Secret Service to apply the same standards when providing security for major candidates as the agency provides for the sitting president and vice president. The service says Donald Trump is currently receiving the highest level of protection, but an official notes the sitting president will always have a larger security package than a candidate due to the many military assets that accompany the commander-in-chief everywhere in the world.
Dirty laundry coming out in London, where lawyers say former Harrods boss Mohammed Al-Fayed abused young women and girls. The allegations coming after the screening of a BBC documentary. We get more from Tom Rivers.
Dozens have come forward alleging rape and sexual abuse at the hands of the one-time owner of the famous London department store. Attorney Bruce Drummond describes the Egyptian-born businessman, died last year at the age of 94, as a monster.
This is one of the worst cases of corporate sexual exploitation that certainly I and perhaps the world has ever seen. It was absolutely horrific.
The alleged victim said to be as young as 15.
That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
We're rocking out on the Matt Murphy Show. I'm Cameron Smith. We went through the top 7 most Republican counties in Tennessee. Now we've got the top 3. A couple of you on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, 615-737-9986, had some more guesses. Humphreys County, White County, Lawrence County, Stewart County. Stewart County got to be number 1. Stewart County. Nope. Here's the top 3. Number 3, Macon County. Split 19.2% Democratic, 79.2% Republican. This is the average popular vote split in the last 4 presidential elections. County population, 25,365. Scott County is number 2. 17.2% Democratic, 81.3% Republican. Population 21,917. And number 1, I would have a drum roll, but it's just kind of anticlimactic.
I mean, I have one.
Okay, go ahead. Let's do it.
Well, let's see if I can get this.
We can see.
If it's, why is it not? Wait.
Excellent. And the answer is the most Republican county in the state of Tennessee, Wayne County. Average vote split in the last 4 presidential elections, 17.2% Democratic, 81.4% Republican. And this is what's interesting. 2020 election, 12.3% Democratic, 86.9% Republican.
So you're saying it was close. You know what's more surprising than that? That drum roll hockey was over a minute long. So we would have been here that's why I was plotting down, like, this is going to take a while.
That's awesome. That is very long drum roll. But yeah, actually in Wayne County, over the last 4 cycles, Barack Obama in 2008 did the best of any Democrat with 24.5%. So, nearly a quarter, but Joe Biden got half of that. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Obviously, we know Tennessee, absent Davidson County, and I guess it's Shelby County over in Memphis.
I think so, yeah.
Very Republican state, right? But to see those type of percentages, I mean, that is wild. I mean, that's crazy. And I'll give you a little secret. Williamson County wasn't actually in the top. It wasn't even in the top 50, I don't think.
See, I'm kind of. I was shocked when I heard that. But when you explained it to me, I kind of got it.
Yeah. So the folks that live in Williamson County, and that's where I grew up, it's a very conservative area. But we're talking 60 to 70%. It's now grown. It's a bigger area. So you have a chunk of Democrats.
They're closed in on like 100. They're a little over 100,000 now.
Right.
And like, what was it, a couple years ago, they were below that.
Right. And so you're looking at probably 2/3 Republican, 1/3 Democrat. And it has been a fundraising haven for particularly national Republicans for a very long time. And what I'm seeing is, what I really think is happening is that there are a lot of more what I would call Orange County Republicans, that they are basically libertarians is what they are. They're more limited government. They don't want intrusive government. They don't want high taxes, but they're socially a little more, I don't want to say liberal because that's probably the wrong word.
Well, they have a lot of land. I think they just don't want that taken from the government. That's why I think they're somewhere more libertarian, as you're saying, because there's so much, like when you see these properties in Williamson County, there's tons of land around it. It's not just a house in a neighborhood. It's a big land.
Well,
property.
it's also what I've seen with Williamson County is it's a more free market oriented community anyway. You've got a lot of business folks from that do business in Nashville. They live in Williamson County, and they're like, I like light touch government. I don't want the heavy hand of government jumping in. What I've seen though is there's more of a rift on a lot of the social issues, because let's face it, the Republican power base is evangelical conservatives plus. The bulk are still in that vein, but that's changed. That shift has started to happen such that those evangelical voters are still a massive cohort, but the level of solidarity across the Republican spectrum just isn't there. And what we're really seeing that right now on the abortion issue is there are a lot of pro-life evangelical voters that are like, no, we oppose abortion. We believe that human life is worth protecting even in its earliest stages. We want the government to engage and protect that life. Very simple, very straightforward. But if you look at, for example, where Donald Trump is right now, which is, hey, abortion should be legal more than 6 weeks. And I don't know much beyond that. He's commented on the ballot initiative in Florida, that kind of thing. He knows this is a political hot button for him. And he's saying, look, I got the evangelical voters. They're already in my camp. So I need to get some of those independents. The fact that the Republican Party, in the National Republican Party, doesn't have a federal abortion ban or something like that in the policy agenda for the first time in a generation. It's very much a lot of Republicans have said, hey, this is a state's issue. You can deal with it on the state level. But that used to be a much more solid issue for the Republican Party. Now, there's a solid base that's very pro-life, but there's a lot of folks in the fold that are like, I don't like late-term abortion, but, some flex in that middle is there. And I think we need to be honest about that. But we're seeing, I've long said the first party that finds a way to be truly limited government, light touch, I'm not talking anarchy, but like, hey, let's not be as intrusive. Let's not look to the government to solve everything for us. I think they're going to do the best long term, because I think there are a lot of folks that believe government has a role. I mean, the Constitution constitutes something. It is government. And you just don't have to have the one that we have, where we're racking up $1 trillion every 100 days. That's ridiculous. So congratulations to the folks in Wayne County. You're very, very Republican. On the Members Nutrition Super Dex line, the question was raised when I was talking about California and the deep fakes. The new laws there that basically say that you can't try to pass something off as real when it's not. This is misinformation. I think these laws are going to get struck down, but the question was a fair one. Well, how do you know how to fact check politicians? I'll make some of you guys mad on this, but like the dog and cat eating thing that Vance and Trump ran with, it's not true. It's not true. The major videos that have been used have been other instances that have been pretty easily dispatched. That is in no way dismissing the immigration crisis that's happening in Springfield because of the temporary protected status stuff of the Biden and Harris administration. That's a real legitimate issue. The whole them eating your pets thing is not. And the question is, how could folks have known that quicker? How could folks have looked at that and said, I didn't really pass the sniff test? And the answer is, keep your powder dry. Everybody runs on a hot take to share something, to create this viral moment. It's all media algorithms and stuff like that. And people have FOMO. They don't want to get left out of the conversation, so they say things. And, you know, when we had the people who started the stuff that Vance and Trump used saying, well, no, it's not true, and I apologize, it looks stupid because guess what? Trump and Vance are actually winning on the immigration issue. A lot of people think it's a challenge for our country because of the mass volume that's come across the southwest border. They're right. It is. We need to address it. Trump's seen as the most competent to address it, and he's winning on the issue. But this kind of creates a distraction that allows Democrats to say, you know what? They're just silly. They're silly on this stuff. They're making stuff up. They can't find enough real issues. They got to make the issues up. So see, we're doing great. It's not true. The United States has not done great on immigration for a long time. Like that's a fact. You can look at the numbers. And if you don't want to look at government reports, which are really nerdy and not easy to digest in most formats, then keep your powder dry till you know something to be true. If it is sensational, viral, and it affirms your view, you should be the most skeptical. If somebody puts out something and you're like, man, that just makes my point, and you just run with it, stop for a minute, think about it, and say, you know, let me make sure that I know this is true. I see this, the example that I saw, I said, guys, do we know that this dog cat eating thing's true? And they showed me the video of the Ohio woman from, I think it was Canton, who actually got arrested for eating a cat. She's since pled, used insanity as a defense to the charges against her, but she was 150 miles away from Springfield. She was born in Ohio. She wasn't a Haitian migrant, but I saw several people I asked use that video. And so wait till you know something to be true. And if you're not sure, don't be in a rush to share something. I've talked to my own family about that. Most of us are guilty of doing that now. Of we like something, we think it supports our position, so we share it. I've been guilty of this, and then you find out, you know, it's not exactly lining up. And I hear the argument, well, hey, the left controls the mainstream media, and they make up stuff all the time. Cool, I don't want to be like them. I don't like the argument of they do it, so we should do it. I mean, we had all the misinformation stuff, the Russia stuff that, oh, well, turns out folks made that up. It's wrong. That shouldn't have happened. It was very, very wrong. But then to say, well, you know, we get a mulligan or 10. No, we shouldn't be like that. I mean, we're not going to be what we don't like in our political opponents. And so, I mean, that's the answer to the fact check. I can say, well, go to this website, go to that website. At the end of the day, a lot of those things have their own spin. But find people you can trust. Ask them, hey, do you know that this is true? And find somebody who is measured and a little bit like patient. And talk to them, because that'll help you avoid a lot of the weird stuff that's happening in politics right now. When we come back, we got to deal with this. Kamala Harris has been completely reinvented. I'm going to show you the polling information that really matters right now. It's going to potentially change this election. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
I'm going to give it away. We're going to do TikTok today.
Oh, TikTok or talk? Okay.
TALK.
Spring is here. Today we're going to talk about ticks. Bugs are coming out. Unfortunately, ticks are coming out. People are going to be out in the woods. First, the types of ticks.
American dog tick, the black-legged deer tick, the Lone Star tick. We've got a Gulf Coast tick. Got a new one coming in, the Longhorn tick. These are the ones we need to watch out for. 75% of vector transmitted diseases now are from ticks. Rocky Mountain spotted fever, rickelosis, tularemia, Lyme disease, almost flu-like, gonna run a fever. You may or may not get a rash in the saliva. They secrete the cement to glue themselves in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great.
So you need to get some tweezers, get down on that capitulum and grab it and pull the tick off. Do not grab the body. A lot of people think ticks drop out of trees. They don't drop out of trees. And they can't jump. And they can't fly.
So they're in the leaves, on the plants and things.
On the grass.
On the
leaves of the grass. And they do this number with their front legs. And that's called questing. They are sensing a prey item coming by. They'll take those legs and latch on and then crawl up.
And then there you go. You're battling it.
A lot of news breaking right now. We've got the Secret Service just releasing a report faulting communication and drone failures before the Trump rally in July. And new information now about that Kentucky judge shot and killed allegedly by the sheriff. Coming up at 1 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. I think Bob Marley said that. That's a wild story. I want to get the information about that one because
it's
a doozy.
It is indeed.
I mean, I just can't imagine being and I'm an attorney, being in a courtroom and somebody just walks in, shoots the judge, and stops.
After the shooting, can I get a retrial?
Yeah. What? I mean, that's
recess.
That's crazy. Ronald on the Members Nutrition SuperDoc text line from Huntland, Tennessee, said that Polly Crockett, so Ballad of Davy Crockett's movie about Davy Crockett, Polly's actually in it, is just down the road from him in Huntland. I did not know that. So you learn something new every day. You can go check out the movie, particularly if you have grandkids or kids. Go watch Ballad of Davy Crockett. You can see it on Prime. You can see it all over the place. There are a number of different ways to look at it. The couple of interesting things on the Super Talk text line that I want to get into about all of the eating dogs and cats and things like that. I realize that we should talk about it. Some of the concern is, well, somebody else said it's true. Okay, fine. Somebody can say a thing and it still be false. Just because you want it to be true and support your narrative doesn't help. When we do things like that for conservative causes, it hurts us. Let's talk a little bit more about that on the next hour. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
One o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. And right now in our nation's capital, the Secret Service just released a report that faults communication and drone failures before the Trump rally assassination attempt in July. This is Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe Jr.
Line of sight issues were acknowledged, but not properly mitigated. Issues were encountered the day of the visit with respect to line of sight concerns, but they were not escalated to supervisors.
Rose says the agency will rely more on technology as it shifts how it operates in the aftermath of the two assassination attempts against former President Trump this summer. Meanwhile, in our nation's capital, the House unanimously passed a bill that would require the Secret Service to apply equal standards of protection to major presidential candidates and sitting presidents.
On this vote, the yeas are 405, the nays are 0.
Only 2/3 majority was required for the measure to pass. Now it goes to the Senate. Now to that Kentucky sheriff charged for the murder of a Kentucky judge. The sheriff who allegedly shot and killed that judge was accused in a federal lawsuit of failing to investigate allegations that one of his deputies repeatedly sexually abused a woman in that same judge's chambers. This is according to CBS News. The sheriff was deposed on Monday in a lawsuit filed by two women, one of whom alleged that a deputy forced her to have sex inside the judge's chambers for 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail. Now, before the murder, it is not clear what the two men involved were arguing about. Over the summer, a video of armed men going into an apartment went viral, and there have been claims made by some, including former President Trump, that Venezuelan gangs are controlling areas of Aurora, Colorado. Well, today, police officials held a briefing to say those claims are untrue. Here's Alex Stone.
Well, Aurora, Colorado, like many cities, has seen an uptick in undocumented immigrants and has gangs, contrary to claims that have gone viral. And former President Trump has talked about Aurora Police Chief Todd Chamberlain says gangs are not in control of the city or apartment complexes, and there is no evidence that gangs are charging apartment residents rent.
Bring that fear factor, bring that panic or that moral panic down.
He says investigators have not even found evidence that suspects seen in a viral video were gang members.
Trump has said he's going to travel to Aurora because of the gang problem. Back to our nation's capital.
President Biden urged Congress to pass a short-term funding bill to avert a government shutdown, saying Americans need to have faith that lawmakers, quote, will pull this together.
We have 10 days for Congress to pass a short-term funding bill that gives them more time to deliver on our national defense, veterans, hardworking families, but we've already appropriated. It's important we get it done.
Lawmakers have a midnight October 1st deadline to pass a funding bill. Members expect to work over the weekend to reach a plan to avert a shutdown.
Yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson said the House wants to hold a vote before the Senate, but he wouldn't say when that may occur next week. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back. I didn't know that looped. That's a lot.
I didn't either. That's a first for me.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to stop, and it keeps going. Okay. I'm Cameron Smith. Welcome to the second hour of the Matt Murphy Show. And it's interesting that we're having the conversation about dog and cat and pet eating, right? I don't know. We need to talk about this. I've gone through the Super Talk text line, and you're asking a great question of, well, Cameron, are you in Springfield? No, of course I'm not in Springfield. Well, you're saying that a video was debunked, which it has been, the story about the Canton woman who is apparently having a psychotic episode and took a bite out of a cat she killed. Not in Springfield either. And so you can't say, Cameron, definitively that people aren't stealing cats and eating them or dogs or whatever. And that's used to say, well, so it's just as likely the case that that's happening as it's not happening. Well, that's just simply not true. The Republican congressman who represents Springfield, he said, no, the claims are false. That's just not true. Like, pets are not disappearing. That goose photo, the guy holding that gray goose that's gone viral, again, not consistent. It's been debunked. They've had people out there talking about it and saying, no, this is not a Haitian who killed geese. Like, that's not what that picture is. Like I said, I've talked about the video. The governor's saying it's not true. It's just not true. We need to help Springfield on the absolute flood of immigrants in there. There are 15,000 or so Haitian immigrants there, and it's putting a lot of strain on the infrastructure in a relatively small city of about 60,000. Again, I'm going to make the point that the issue is Biden's TPS program. We should have that policy discussion. We can say Biden's a failure on immigration policy. That's true. But the idea that this is, nobody's willing to have that discussion, we're having that discussion over and over again. We're having the discussion about the flood of immigration across the southwest border. We talk about the people that have been killed by people who shouldn't be here. There's a lot of talk about these things. We've seen, you can go Google it right now. The citizens voicing concerns about any number of things. That's all fine. I'm not about, hey, that's a problem. But when you have a reason to know something's not true, or at least it's suspicious, and then you just kind of run with it and double and triple down, and yes, the number of Chinese food jokes on the Members Nutrition Super Talk text line are hilarious. I see all of you. But my whole point is it's unnecessary. It allows, if you're pushing something that you have a reason now to believe is not true, and keep pushing it, doesn't help the immigration narrative. The immigration narrative is good enough. Trump wins that issue 10 points. 10 points. By just saying, look, at the Biden-Harris administration, it is such a failure on this issue that let's just talk about the issue. Let's not engage in hyperbole. Let's not engage in gross mischaracterization. Let's not do that. And the number of folks that I've seen, and I get it, you can be mad at me all you want, but the number of folks bending over backwards to say, well, if it's not true, it doesn't matter. Like, truth matters. It should always matter. And I don't like the idea that you take an issue where you're winning and give Democrats ammo to say, well, actually, they're just silly. If it were really that bad, they wouldn't make stuff up. Well, the truth is it really is that bad, that there's really that much failure in this issue space. And you can talk about that and win. But when Harris and co. can come out and laugh and say, look at all these silly memes, they're making a joke out of it, saying they're going to come for your pets. They take the focus, make it silly, and then they move to another issue where they think they have more traction with voters. She wants to, let's be blunt, she wants to talk about abortion. That's the issue where she thinks she's going to make hay. She does not want to talk about immigration. She does not want to talk about foreign wars. She doesn't want to talk about inflation. The one issue she's very comfortable in, and you saw this in the debate, is she thinks she's going to win on abortion. And so she wants to pivot to there. It's a political pivot. It's how it works. You ask them any question, they pivot to what they want to talk about. Every politician does it. The best ones are trained, and you don't even notice it's happening until you realize they haven't answered any of your questions, and they're telling you what they want you to hear. And so we got to think about this, folks. The issues that Trump ran on against Biden still work versus Harris. And this is what I told you guys that I was going to talk about and get to. And I think it's really important that we understand what's happening here and don't take our eye off the ball. They want the focus on the weird cat stuff. The complete and utter reinvention of Kamala Harris is insane, people. I'm looking here at, and you can see the same on any aggregator. I'm looking at 538. What I look at is favorability versus unfavorability of a candidate, right? Of a politician. We've been keeping these type of polls forever, right? And I'm not somebody that's telling you that all the polls are dispositive and Harris having a 3-point national polling lead translates into victory. That's not true. Favorability really matters, though, because at the end of the day, most folks vote for politicians they like. They don't vote for, well, the withdrawal from Afghanistan is really bad. Oh, okay, cool. Like maybe there's some veterans that's their number one issue, and that turns their vote. But if they really like a candidate, they tend to find reasons to support that candidate. And we know that's true on the right as well. I mean, I just used the dog and cat thing. I can tell you exactly which one of the folks on the Super Talk text line are hardcore Trump. You know, whatever he does is right, and I will contort myself, even if it doesn't seem right, to justify it. Well, that's not weird, right? I know it seems weird when we talk about it or when people are like, well, I just love Harris. Well, why? Well, joy. Well, that's not a very good reason. That logic that we want to use, well, here's the issues, here's the things, and if you were rational, this is how you'd vote. That does not happen. People they pay attention a couple months before the election, and it's a general feel, and then they go in and they vote. And it hinges on those swing voters. You don't have to like it. That's the truth. What has happened with Harris, and it is not because she is a great candidate, it is because there has been a complete reinvention of her in the media, and there has been a level of discipline from her that I think we underestimated. A lot of Republicans, and I joked about it too. I said, I talked about a future unburdened by what has been on a loop because I thought it was funny. Her word salad video clips are everywhere. They're not hard to find. I saw her in that debate versus Trump, and she had discipline and focus. Did she answer the questions? No. Were the moderators biased in the focal point and not holding her to account the way they held Trump? Sure. But she was disciplined. At her convention speech, 37 minutes, very disciplined. For most of the last, the last time she had a favorable rating, net favorable. So what they do is they take the people who poll favorable, netted against the people who poll unfavorable. Last time she had something that was favorable was in July-ish of 2021. And then for the last several years, we're talking net unfavorable of 12 to 14 points. 12 to 14 points. And it's been there. And the high water mark, for example, in October 16th, 2023, net unfavorable of 17.4 points. So where are we now? On the 18th, it was 0.003, and now I believe on the 20th, we are at 0.1 favorable. Okay? So I want you to think about that. To swing 14 points in what people perceive of a candidate. And you guys are smart people, so you're looking at this and you're saying, well, she was responsible for the Biden administration. She was the last person in the room. We've talked about that. Okay, cool. What I did not realize and what I got wrong was, roughly a third of the electorate wanted to hear more. They didn't know enough about her because what Trump tried to do was tie her to the Biden administration pretty quickly, and that was the smart move, right? What she has done is said, well, actually, that's the Biden administration policy, but I'm different. And joy. I have joy. I love joy, personally. Joy is great. But the point is, we also had joy with inflation, joy with failed foreign affairs, those foreign wars, joy with an immigration crisis. And she acts as if none of that should be attributed to her. And the media has basically bought this, the legacy media. I want to be real careful. The media is big. A lot of your old school news outlets, the usual suspects like MSNBC, CNN, have said, well, was she really? Most vice presidents don't really have that decision-making role. typically I would agree with that. We've seen that Joe Biden doesn't have that decision-making rule, so who was it? So that, to me, is the biggest concern in this election, because if you look at Trump, where he is on favorability, this is not a poll of Tennessee. This is not a poll of red states. It's across the country. But Trump's been basically the same. His net unfavorables are 10 points right now, September 20th, 2024. Those range, just like Harris in August of 2023, it was 17.2% unfavorable, but it's bounced around. 11, 12, 13 over the last several years. He's been kind of where he is, and he's actually trending towards a better place, but he's still 10 points unfavorable. And I'm telling you, if we don't look at that and say, hey, this really matters, this is going to have an impact, we're in trouble. And I think that's the mistake. I was actually listening to Dan Mandis and Chris and folks earlier today, and they were pointing out like she's incompetent, she's all the fine. I'm not going to debate the perspective. My concern is that if we're not actively campaigning on the positive, I think Trump's doing the right thing to say, what have you got to lose? You don't have to like me to know that what she represents is bad for you and your future. I think the right campaign here is pocketbook. Objectively, who are you doing better under? Is it the Biden-Harris administration? Is it the Trump administration? And do that on a loop. Whenever we start talking about cats and dogs and geese, we're not talking about that. And that's where the media wants to keep the discussion. And that allows Harris to just do the nervous laugh and say, joy. I'm just joyful about American identity and eagles and liberty and all the things. And of course she still says word salad, but now it's polling as likable word salad. It's fluff. And sometimes that's all you need is she had a good debate performance. And then it is, okay, now what? Well, she's trying to run out the clock. She's trying not to be associated with Biden's track record. And she's presenting herself as she is an incumbent vice president who's arguing that she's the change agent, but people are buying it. I think that's something we have to be concerned about. And I think it's a very big concern going into the election. We're going to talk about some concerns on the Biden side, because I think, or I shouldn't say the Biden side, the Harris side now, that Democrats have to worry about. I know what Republicans have to worry about. What do Democrats have to worry about? What's the vulnerability point? We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
New Secret Service report on Trump assassination attempt in July and new information about the killing of a judge in Kentucky coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back to the Matt Murphy Show. We got a little time before the mid-hour break. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm reading, over the break, I was reading the Members Nutrition Super Text line, 615-737-9986. I think that there's something bigger here that we need to address in regards to truth. Because what I said, and it's recorded, it's there for anybody who's listening, was that these allegations, particularly of the debunked video and pictures that have a explanation, gives rise to the fact that, hey, the people who started some of this stuff, they've said, actually, it wasn't true. I'm apologized. I didn't mean to have all this stuff. The idea of, well, Cameron, do you have the evidence to suggest that no one anywhere in Springfield who is a Haitian immigrant has eaten anything such as a pet, a goose, a dog, whatever, right, in that world? Well, of course, I don't have firsthand knowledge of the dietary practices of every Haitian immigrant in Springfield, Ohio. And everybody knows that, right? But I do think that the idea that if you can't know everything firsthand, you can't see something as true or false is kind of silly, because that means almost nothing that we don't firsthand experience we can describe as true or false. That means that, like, for those of y'all who are Christians out there, your faith, unless you've met Jesus in person, do you really know that he existed? How about the Apostle Paul? Do you have firsthand knowledge of that? Do you know that the Bible wasn't written by aliens 30 years ago and that our memories have been adjusted since then. Well, if you can't prove, if you don't have evidence that the Bible was written in this way by these people firsthand, you can't really know. If that's the game we're playing, then nobody can really know much of anything. And that's insane. I'll put that out there. That's absolutely nuts. If I have to modify the statement to say, based on the folks who represent Springfield having come out and said, and people that I agree with politically, Republicans, have said, no, this just isn't true. This is not happening all over Springfield. This is not a regular occurrence. And I think y'all would agree with me that if something's a one-off, even if it is a one-off, and it did happen as a one-off, is that the same as this is just happening regularly? This is the problem? Well, the answer is no. And so the idea that I can't, anything that I don't know exactly firsthand, I can't know as true or false, I just disagree with that. And if that's how little regard we have for the truth, I'm a Christian. I believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I believe nobody goes through the Father except through him. I believe that is true, but I've never hung out with Jesus in person. And so I think we need to be really, really clear about how we approach the truth. And my point is that we can argue back and forth about whether this is true, but there's still an immigration issue that's legitimate. And so my point is, even if you don't agree with me, even if you're saying, well, Cameron, so-and-so said this was true, or and you're saying it's false, and you're an idiot. Okay, cool. We still have a better immigration argument. There's still a winner there. That you should stick with that. You shouldn't buy the distraction. And one of you made the point of, on the Super Talk text line, of, well, you know, it'd be easy for Democrats to seed these type of things and just to see if Republicans would bite on them to create the distraction. Yeah, that absolutely could happen, because what do I know? There's opposition research everywhere. And they know, and they look at the type of individual that's over there, and they say, well, you know, Trump and Vance might run with this. Okay. So at the end of the day, we hurt ourselves by not being credible on these things and then just moving on and acting like, well, it didn't even happen. I want to win. This is not and thank you. Yes, you regularly hang out with Jesus where it counts. True. Absolutely true. We need to take a break. Several other stories, Ukraine, Georgia, paper ballots, tons of stuff that we need to talk about. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
.1:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast in 5 minutes. And right now in our nation's capital, the Secret Service just released a report that false communication and drone failures before the Trump rally assassination attempt in July. Acting Director Ronald Rowe Jr. moments ago.
These employees will be held accountable, and this agency has among the most robust table of penalties in the entirety of the federal government. And these penalties will be administered according to our disciplinary process.
5 agents placed on administrative leave. Rowe says the agency moving forward will rely more on technology as it shifts how it operates in the aftermath of these assassination attempts on Trump this summer. Meanwhile, in our nation's capital, the House unanimously passing a bill that would require the Secret Service to apply equal standards of protection to major presidential candidates and sitting presidents. Now that bill goes to the Senate. And new information about the killing of a judge in Kentucky. CBS News is reporting the sheriff who allegedly shot and killed District Judge Kevin Mullins was deposed on Monday in a federal lawsuit claiming he failed to investigate allegations that one of his deputies repeatedly sexually abused a woman in the same judge's chambers. Sheriff Steins was booked into the Leslie County Detention Center 2 counties away, where he remained this morning. And General Motors is recalling nearly 500,000 trucks and SUVs.
A brake fluid warning light could fail in the GM vehicles. That could increase the risk of a crash. Drivers could notice the brake pedal goes down farther than it should without any dashboard heads up. That's according to federal highway safety regulators. It's partly a software problem. The recall covers certain 2023 and 24 models of Chevrolet Silverado 1500, Tahoe, Suburban, GMC Sierra and Yukons, and Cadillac Escalades. No word of any crashes or injuries.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
When I heard that at first, I thought we were going with Barracuda.
I can hear it.
You can? Yeah. Early, then I realized, no, it is not Barracuda. But this is the Matt Murphy Show. We're having fun. We're going to have Senator Hagerty in the last hour. It's going to be awesome because we're going to talk a little bit about what's next for conservatives in terms of where are we? This has been, for Republicans, the Trump show, period. And it is, let's go Trump. That's the thing. So if he wins, we know what the deal is. Like, we understand that. If he loses, well, then what? Either way, I just kind of want to know what we're focused on. Like, what are the policy things? Because the spending's out of control. The regulatory state's out of control. Some of my concern is, y'all are going to love this. You might not. You may end up hating it, but it's true, and I want to throw it out there. And then I'll talk to you about what Joe Biden needs to worry about. So after Trump at his New York rally said he's going to temporarily cap interest rates on credit cards at 10%, I said, man, this is another government mandate in the private sector. I get it. Folks who have credit card debt, it's hard to get off that. Like, this is a temporary thing to make it easier. But it's absolutely government hand in private sector telling you what to do as a mandate. It's not conservative at all. Like, just on its face, not conservative. And then I said, well, I've heard of this stuff before, right? This sounds like Elizabeth Warren. So I started searching for credit card fee caps on legislative efforts. And the first one I crossed was actually Senator Josh Hawley at 18%. And so he had an 18% cap. Okay. I'm like, but that's a Republican. My guess is there's got to be some Democrats who had proposed a 10% or lower to really try to go after voters who have issues with credit cards. Then I looked, and Elizabeth Warren, Sheldon Whitehouse, and some other folks had done it so that they kicked it back to the states. And so giving states the permission to cap regulatory or cap interest rates. And I think Rhode Island had one that was preempted by a court ruling. And so that was the Sheldon Whitehouse, Elizabeth Warren plan, was to kick it back to the states, which is a federalist thing, but they didn't really have a rate per se. And then I found a measure by Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and it would cap interest rates at 15%. So I'm sitting like, wait a minute. This is a conservative. Not only is it liberal, but it's to the left of Bernie Sanders and AOC. I mean, folks, as conservatives, we've got to like sort of raise our hand and say, let's not do this. That we should not play with the free market. We shouldn't go in there. I get it. The credit card companies are not sympathetic plaintiffs. It's not that I have any love lost for those folks. But it's a pretty basic understanding of, hey, you know what we're doing here is we charge these high interest rates because we have these cards available to a lot of people. So if you cap the rates, we're not going to give the cards to a lot of people. We'll only give them to people with really high credit scores. And if that's the goal, if the goal is to remove easy access to credit for most of America, I get that, right? I understand that being a policy objective, but I don't think that's it. It's, as Trump was saying, it was to allow people time to catch up because of Biden's inflation. So I get that, but I'm confused. Maybe y'all can explain it to me that I don't understand. I've got Dave in Lebanon. Dave, can you make this make sense to me as a conservative?
Well, I agree with him. And I think, I don't like heavy government at all.
Okay.
It needs to be way less than what we got. And I believe Trump's going to get in there, hopefully with Elon Musk, and knock it down quite a bit. Get rid of people that we don't need and policies we don't need. But in this case, my wife and I have good credit. We own our own home. Mm-hmm. And we don't buy anything unless we can pay for it in cash.
Right.
But we're remodeling our home, and we just went out and got some flooring, and we got a credit card through them, which we already had done it somewhere else.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
In any case, if you don't pay it off by a certain amount, which it will be paid this week. We just got the credit card
Yeah, sure. That's what I do. Yeah.
In any case, if someone else had done that, now my wife and I, we're going to pay it off. We got the money to pay it off. But if someone else had done that, that credit, if they didn't have it paid off within a year, went to the interest rate went to 37%. I'm sorry, man. Getting interest from your money, I'm okay with that. But taking advantage of somebody, I'm not okay with.
Well, here's a question for you.
Wait a minute, let me finish.
Okay,
a lot of these credit companies do just that. They take advantage of people.
But do you think they're taking advantage of you?
I'm not saying they're taking advantage of me. No, they're not, because we're going to pay it off. We got the money to do it. But not everybody does. You know, this economy that we have now, thanks to these people that are in control, and I'm trying to be nice here.
Okay.
There are people out here now that have good credit and are having to they've used their savings up already, and I'm telling you this because I know it.
But that means they should be entitled to other people's money, right? On terms that they want, right?
No, it's not.
But so let me ask you this question.
You're making an excuse and an okay for the credit companies to do it.
No, I'm asking you a question. I won't use a credit company. I'll use me. Let's say I tell you, hey, you know what? I'm going to lend you $100. If you don't pay me back within a year, you got to pay me back $197. Is that fair?
Well, it depends on the person. If the person is, see,
I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not hiding it from you.
I see your point, Cameron.
Okay.
I see your point. But like in my brother's case, he had good credit, but he's about to lose his home because he got, and part of this is because of the company he worked for, got rid of him after he got hurt, and he's suing them for it.
Yeah.
He lives in Ohio, where this so-called governor that you seem to think is, you were talking about him earlier, he's as Chris said, a soy boy governor. He needs to be replaced. Okay. He's not a conservative.
Republicans did elect him, right?
Well, yeah, they did elect him, but the thing is, he's not what they elected.
Okay.
You know it as well as I do.
Well, they could replace him. That's what you're saying, is the voters should replace him. Okay.
He'll be replaced, but it's not. When people get hurting, like under the economies we have now, and they have no choice. It's either take a credit card out to save their home or to feed their children. Should they be penalized for that? For a high 35, 25, 37, 40%?
So you're saying that government intervention's okay if people really need it?
In a way, yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Dave. Thank you very much for the call. And, I think, Dave, that's a take, right? Like, it's not that Dave's being inconsistent. He's saying, well, I don't like big government, but, if somebody needs a credit card and they don't like the terms, but they need to take out the credit, then the government should be able to come in and say, hey, credit card company, even though it's your money, you can't charge them for that money, no matter if you tell them or not. Like, no, we're going to take that 97%, cram it down to 10%. That, to me, is big government liberalism. Just saying. We've got a few minutes here, but I want to get to somebody who can explain this to me as a conservative idea. Maybe Brian and Franklin can do this. Brian, can you help me out here?
Hey, listen, I haven't been thinking about this a whole lot. I'm not an expert, but I'm just going to say I think this is an example of why conservatism is losing in some ways. And it's ultimately not the answer for our society, because not everything needs to be conserved. And our society has been built on usury for a long, long time, and that's anti-biblical. Now, and I think that the fact that our whole country, including our national debt and everything, depends on credit growth, depends on going into more and more debt, all the way down to the individual personal level, and it's been institutionalized, and it's just plain wrong, and it's driving our country. And
so I don't have a choice about whether I go into tons of debt or not. I can't help that.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I'm asking. Like, you know, if it's, well, our culture pushes this, but like, you have a choice, right? Like, you don't have to take out a high interest credit card loan if you don't want to, right?
Exactly. But I'm saying, though, it's like, I think what the guy on the phone, the previous caller, was making a big difference. There's a big difference between 30% and 10%. And let's face it, these bankers don't do anything to earn that money. I know, okay, they take risk, big deal, whatever. But is anybody sweating or working or doing anything? No. I think 10% is a really great return on anything.
So government can tell you how
the numbers.
Hang on, I want to ask you a question. So government can tell you how much you can make as long as you're not sweating?
No, I think that's twisting what I'm saying a little bit. I'm saying that these banks they're squeezing blood out of turnips. That's what they're doing. And they're going to drive this country into the ground with usury, okay? And I think there's a big difference between 30%. As a credit card holder, I can tell you there's a huge difference in my bill between the interest I see added on every month between a 30% card and one with a much, much lower interest rate. So at least with a lower interest rate, there is the hope. A person has hope that I can pay this off eventually if I work hard. When it gets up to 30% or so, you lose that hope.
Where's the cap? Where would you put it?
No barrels.
Where would you put the cap, Brian? Like, for example, Bernie.
I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial analyst. I don't have a number to give you, but I would much rather go closer to 10 than 30. That's for dang sure.
So you would be on the sort of more government control side than Bernie and AOC. You would be more in the 10% than the 15%.
Yeah, it's guilt by association, whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying that not everything in our society needs to be conserved. And I think that it's downright usury. It's a sin, and our society is built on it, and I don't believe in conserving that. That's, to me, not a value that I want to conserve.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you for the call. And, I hear that. So this isn't conservative because it's not something that we like. So if people are charging high rates with their money, we want to stop that. Okay. I think that's interesting. A lot of you guys want to get in on this. I want to hear the conservatives' case for interest rate caps. Like, I need to understand it because I'm struggling with it. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
I'm going to give it away. We're going to do TikTok today.
Oh, TikTok or talk? Okay.
TALK.
Spring is here. Today we're going to talk about ticks. Bugs are coming out. Unfortunately, ticks are coming out. People are going to be out in the woods. First, the types of ticks.
American dog tick, the black-legged deer tick, the Lone Star tick. We've got a Gulf Coast tick. Got a new one coming in, the longhorn tick. These are the ones we need to watch out for. 75% of vector-transmitted diseases now are from ticks. Rocky Mountain spotted fever, Rickelosis, tularemia, Lyme disease, almost flu-like. You're going to run a fever. You may or may not get a rash in the saliva. They secrete the cement to glue themselves in.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great.
So you need to get some tweezers, get down on that capitulum and grab it and pull the tick off. Do not grab the body. A lot of people think ticks drop out of trees. They don't drop out of trees. And they can't jump. And they can't fly.
So they're in the leaves, on the plants and things.
On the grass. On the leaves of the grass. And they do this number with their front legs. And that's called questing. They are sensing a prey item coming by. They'll take those legs and latch on and then crawl up.
And then there you go. You're battling it.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Secret Service releases a new report on the Trump assassination attempt in July, coming up at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Rocking and rolling again. I appreciate everyone who called in, and I understand it was sort of we had to head right to break, and we've got another break. I don't really have enough time before the top of the hour. I see you, Jim, in Cooperstown, was going to help explain to me why the credit card cap is a good conservative policy.
So he actually, on the phone, he's like, he sells that interest-free, like that product. when he's talking about. So I think he'll be a good person to talk to. Hopefully, Jim, if you're listening, stay till the end, the top of the hour, and we'll probably get to you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Just hang in there, Jim. And I see y'all on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. We'll get to it, but we got to wrap it up on the other side of the break because we have Senator Hagerty coming in to talk to us about sort of what the policies are that we should see, and provided that his schedule holds up, we'll get to him. And if he can't make it for any reason, we'll have this conversation because you guys want to have that conversation. So I'm listening to you. We've got this one. We've got talk about Ukraine and the non-existent game plan there. We've got, we got a lot. There's a lot of stuff on this agenda. We've got spending. We've got government spending. We've got to fund the government. We're having some troubles with that. We got to talk about that too. Man, we're going to run out of time. We've got a good show for the next hour. Awesome stuff. I want you to hang in. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show, and this is Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast in 5 minutes. I can tell you it's 92 degrees right now on Music Row. A new report from the Secret Service cites issues with communications and drone capabilities in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a would-be assassin fired in the direction of former President Donald Trump, hitting him in the ear. And then the Secret Service killing one man before the shooter was himself killed by agents. I did not read that correctly. A new report from the Secret Service cites issues with communications and drone capabilities in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a would-be assassin fired in the direction of former President Donald Trump, killing one man before the shooter was himself killed by agents. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
The acting Secret Service director says his agency failed to ensure that local law enforcement would fully protect the AGR building, which shooter Thomas Crooks used as a perch.
There was an assumption that they had it covered, but there clearly was not that follow-up to make sure.
Ronald Rowe also says agents relied too heavily on cell phones to communicate. He promises accountability, and he says the service will need more technological resources and more manpower.
We need a shift in paradigm and how we conduct our protective operations.
Prior to that new report, the U.S. House unanimously passed a bill to require the Secret Service to provide the same level of protection to major presidential candidates and current sitting presidents. Now it's up to the Senate. New information about the killing of a judge in Kentucky. CBS News is reporting the sheriff who allegedly shot and killed District Judge Kevin Mullins had been deposed on Monday in a federal lawsuit. A woman claims that one of Sheriff Stein's deputies had sexually abused her for 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail, but Sheriff Steins failed to investigate the allegations. The woman claims the sex for favor took place inside that same judge's chambers. As for the shooting, authorities say that the judge and the sheriff were arguing beforehand, but authorities say they don't know what the argument was about. That small community where it happened, described by locals as a place where everyone knows each other or is related in some way, Sheriff Stein sits in a jail 2 counties away. And right now in Aurora, Colorado, police officials holding a briefing today to say claims that Venezuelan gangs are controlling areas of the city are untrue.
Former President Trump has talked about going to Aurora, Colorado because of a video that went viral over the summer showing armed men at an apartment complex. It's been claimed they were Venezuelan gang members who have overtaken apartment complexes. Aurora Police Chief Todd Chamberlain says he wants to make it clear that is not true.
Gangs are not in control of the city of Aurora.
Contrary to claims, he says they have no evidence a gang is charging apartment residents rent or that the suspects seen in that viral video are even gang members.
That is the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Time flies when you're having fun. I'm having fun, and a lot of you guys are too. So I'm on the Members Nutrition Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. And I'm seeing the flip side of the arguments that I've heard. The first one that I heard is, well, I pay off my credit card, but some people might need it, and then 97% is too high. The second one was, well, I'm okay with people having credit, but, you know, if the rates are too high, I'm not okay with that, and we shouldn't conserve it. Okay. Then I see 6768 saying, my credit card is 30%. Well, don't use it then. 9935 said, it's up to the consumer to make the best deal they can, including interest rates. So, for example, somebody with a good credit score can say, hey, I want a little bit better terms. I want a better rate. All right. My whole argument is this. I want to be real clear about this. My view as a conservative on this is if the free market can handle it, let the government stay out of it. Whether it's Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Donald Trump, I don't really care who the politician is saying, well, we're going to cap interest rates. You're saying the government gets to tell the business how to run its business, that it sets up and says, you can't do that. Okay. Well, that's like me saying, if I you can borrow my money, and if you pay me back, there's no interest. But if you don't pay me back in a year, it's 97%. As long as I tell you, and credit card companies have to do this, it's a matter of law. I support these laws, what the interest rate is, what the terms are. As long as they don't hide it from you and it's not a secret, that's your choice as a consumer. And then to say, well, some people have to take it. Do they? Do they? I understand that, you know, from time to time, people get in a bind. They need some credit, but it needs to be on terms they can accept. And if it's, okay, I need to borrow this and then I can pay it back in time and so I don't get on the credit card treadmill. I mean, listen to basically everything Dave Ramsey says. You don't have to agree that he's right about everything, but his whole point is, you see these high rates, you get stuck on that treadmill, it's really hard to get off. I agree. But that's individual responsibility. Those are choices. And in a high inflation environment, we may not like those choices. But then to say, well, but we really support big government when it's for things that we don't like. Like, we don't like high interest rates as consumers. I don't. My answer on a lot of those things is, if I can avoid it, don't use it. Don't use it. That's discipline. It's financial discipline. Again, you can be mad at me, but you can shop around for different products. You don't have to just sign up for what happens. We got Jim in Cooperstown. Jim, talk to me. Help me understand this.
Well, I'm not sure I can help you understand all of it, but when the conversation started out, the fellow was talking about getting a no money down, 12 months interest-free credit card, and then if he didn't pay it off in the 12 months, it went up to 37%. What everybody seems to be missing is if you don't keep your commitment to pay in the first 12 months, if you divide that 37, it's 18.5% over for each year for 2 years.
Right.
So he's not paying 37%. He's just paying 18.5% for 2 years.
Right. But, I mean, my point is, as long as they tell him, he's got choices. That's the reason he said, I'm paying mine off.
Yeah, well, the odds are he's probably buying the flooring from my company because we use it all the time. But if they don't want the 12 months interest free, they can get a 9.9% interest with us. With the same credit card, they just have to agree to a 9.9% interest if they can't pay it off in 12 months.
Right. And the whole thing is you got to make your deals, right? If you say you're going to pay somebody, you can't then go to the government and say, you know what, I said I would, but I can't, so now can you fix it for me? I mean, that's as nanny state as it gets.
That's almost nanny boo-boo, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jim, I appreciate it. I mean, that's the right explanation, and I appreciate the call. I think on this type of thing, I don't like usury. I don't think that we should. And if I had a business of lending, I would want to lend on terms commensurate with the risk. I'd want to make a fair rate of return, and that's that. And that would be my lending company. And it would be awesome. But if you don't like my terms, then you don't have to take the credit. If you don't like the terms of payday loans, you don't have to take the credit. I mean, that, to me, the idea that government comes in and solves that, man, this is not conservative. It just isn't. And I'm concerned when I hear folks telling me, well, government rate caps, government intervention in the marketplaces, that's really conservative, Cameron. You just don't understand. Well, help me understand. Maybe Don in Murfreesboro, he can help me. Don, can you please set me straight?
Probably not.
Thanks, Don.
You want me to be honest, right?
Yeah, I do. I want honesty.
All right. I'm on the fence on this because, you know, when I got my first credit card about 40 years ago, I don't know if it was the state that I lived in or what, but there was a cap back then, 24%. Mm-hmm. And, you know, my interest rate was quite a bit lower than that, but if I missed a couple payments or something like that, there was a cap to even the penalty rate. Of course, back then you didn't have predatory lending where you could go to these payday loan places and title loan places and get 400% interest loans.
Right.
But the thing that I have the biggest problem with is where I've taken on credit cards at a reasonable rate, and I understood that rate. I was okay with that rate, but through no fault of my own, you know, my credit cards are all set up on auto pay, never been late or anything like that, just because they're all variable rate cards.
Sure.
As the economy has gone in the drink, the rates have gone up, and a lot of I ended up cutting up a few and sending them back that have gotten well over 30%. Sure. And I have them now that I'm still holding on to because I'm carrying the balance, and there's nothing I can do. You know, they started out at 18, 17%, and now they're 28, 29%. You know, I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's appropriate. I think there should be some regulation.
Sure.
You know, and don't forget, even Reagan, and I know he was talking about taxes, but he refused to do any movies after he hit a certain point because it's like, why give all your money to them?
Yeah, sure. So, Don, another question for you. Did you know when you took those cards out that if you carried a balance, that rate could change?
Yeah, but I never thought that it would go to this type of a rate. It used to be that, and I haven't gotten a notice like that with the rate increases anymore, so I assume, and I know that's a dangerous practice.
Sure.
But I assume it doesn't exist anymore. It used to be if they came in and substantially changed the rate, you could opt out, which meant that your credit with that company got capped wherever you were at. You couldn't use your credit card anymore.
Yeah.
But you could pay off what you still owed them at the previous rate. I didn't see anything that gave me that option this last year where they've increased the credit rate on the cards like 3 times.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm all for informed decisions to make sure. That's the reason they print those adjustable rates, like the top rate, like it's a matter of law. They have to put it in like big font to say, hey, your rates could go up to this. And, you know, I'm for that. I think that informed decisions matter. But, you know, would you say, like, how would you feel about like student loans and stuff like that, of saying like, well, you took out a student loan, you were 18, it was that at this percent, they told you that, now we're going to cap that rate and say you can't charge interest on those loans. Like, what do you think about something like that?
No, I think, you know, I mean, that's a different story as far as, you know, how do I state it to say the way I really feel? Like I said with mine, my problem is the rate has gone up and up and up and up. If I took out a loan, whether it be a student loan or whatever else, and okay, this is the rate, and I've been making the payment, and you're saying, okay, now they want to raise the rate, so the government should step in and cap it. No, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Don. Thank you very much for the call. I mean, I see Alan on the Super Talk text line. I've had a Home Depot card for 10 years and haven't paid 1 penny in interest because I don't buy anything I can't pay off within the deferred interest period. It's called being a responsible adult. I hate it that some folks get in a bad situation. I'm not unsympathetic to that. You know, there's been situations where, you know, I used my credit card and, you know, then I lost a job or something happened to my economics and I'm like, oh, this is brutal. But it's not as if anybody lied to me. They told me the deal and they said, you're responsible to pay this off. And the way I run it, I use credit cards, but I don't carry a balance because I pay them off. If I don't have the monthly resources to pay it off, then I don't use it. And so, again, like there are unintended consequences of this. You know, what it means is there's a lot of folks that will not have access to credit cards anymore. If you do something like this, if you say, hey, the top rate's 10%, that's what you can do, or you use the AOC and Bernie level of 15%, they're going to say, you can't, we're just not going to issue them. We'll issue them to the rich, to people that we know can pay off that balance every month. There's a very little risk of you not paying us back. And that's what will happen. And, you know, will the banks and credit card companies make as much money? Of course not. Of course not. And I'm not suggesting that these are good products. Like, for example, payday loans and things like that are, you can look on their terms. They're horrific. But there's a choice involved. And if we believe that we're in personal responsibility, as I do as a conservative, then we should say, well, you have a choice. And I understand the predatory language of, well, these are predatory. What you mean by that is the terms are extremely high. Well, with like a payday loan, that reflects the risk. Are they making money? Yes, absolutely. I'm not arguing that this is like necessarily a mom and pop business, but they know a lot of people aren't going to pay it back. They know they're going to lose money. They're going to have to write those off. So those rates are through the roof. And when we decide what's predatory and not, then what leg do we have to stand on when Democrats come in and say, well, this is a predatory company. We need to engage in that. We need to control the economy here. We don't want bad things. So we need the government to have more of a driver's seat in private business. I get it. Credit card companies aren't sympathetic, but it's a big deal. I don't have a ton of time, but I see Carol over there who wants to talk about the credit card issue. Carol, can you help me understand this as a conservative?
Well, look, if you let me say my piece on this, I'm a country person and I'm going to stay that way.
Okay.
I'm not no rich person and all that stuff, but I can tell you this right now. I have about 5 that I cannot pay, and I just got myself in a crunch, and they're kind of small, and they're payday loans. I can tell you the name of the loan company, but I guess I shouldn't.
Yes,
but, I mean, really, I don't want to hurt your feelings, okay?
It's okay. My feelings will survive. You just tell me what you think.
All right. So I don't want to hurt your feelings because there's plenty of people out there that know how to do that. So what I want to say is that we people like me, we don't need someone like you that stands over the radio and preaches to us and tells us that we should pay them off every month. I mean, not everybody can do that.
Yeah,
and a lot of poor
understand.
people, we either get our money from the bank or we get our money from a loan company or we get them from a friend. And most of the time, people like me can't get the money from the bank because we don't have enough clout. And, it just, sometimes your luck is, you're just down on your luck.
Sure, understand that.
So I have just said, the hell with it. My mother said, They can't eat me for dinner, and you can't get blood out of a turnip.
That's true.
And,
Or that is not a turnip you're eating. It's a bad thing. You don't want a bloody turnip. That's gross.
I don't mean to be ignorant, and anybody out there listening, I'm not putting anybody down that's got the money, that has it all organized and all that stuff. That's good for you.
Sure.
But there's some of us, I guess, that just can't get it together.
Okay.
And it doesn't make us ignorant. And, you know, a lot of people that are so dirt poor like me, I have nothing saved. But this chick right here is a Trump girl.
Okay.
So a lot of people think the ignorant people that don't know any better, that they're Democrats. Well, you know, to me, don't want to hurt your feelings.
Feelings are good.
To me, you sound like a Democrat.
Because I'm conservative and think that people should be responsible for their financial choices?
No, we should. We should be responsible. Yes, sir. But what I'm trying to say is that there's some people that will start off so good, and then something will happen in a factory or something, and somebody will make a lie on you. You'll lose your job. Or you, like if you work at Amazon, you get written up for the just smallest crap, and you lose your job. You know, there's
so
really
the government can step in. What you're saying is, if you're down on your luck, the government can step in and tell the private companies, you can't. You got to fix what you told Carol. Carol took out a loan or took out a card at 30%, and now you have to sell it to her for 10%. Is that am I hearing you right?
No. Let me step in, please.
Sure.
I was somewhere, don't want to say where, but I was somewhere about 3 weeks ago, and I met a very nice lady from New York, her and her husband, and they were so friendly. Friendlier than people here in Tennessee. And this woman is a psychiatric counselor. She got her a loan, and our government had that forgiving thing where they forgive your loan. I mean, this woman's educated.
Yeah.
Why should she get her loan forgiven? Why don't they forgive the poor people's crap? So they didn't forgive. They forgave her, but the snag with her, she has to stay there 2 more years in that counseling thing.
So she had to work a certain amount of time to get the debt forgiveness. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she wants out. And guess what she's having to do? She's having to go to a counselor because she can't handle those nuts that she's trying to help.
So counselors go to counseling. That happens. I appreciate it, Carol. Carol, that's a take. Yeah, my feelings are not hurt. I just disagree that, if you hit hard times, I understand you need different things, but it's the idea that you're entitled to somebody else's money on certain terms. Well, I just don't think that's true. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.
The Secret Service admits numerous failures in Butler, and Israel claims to have killed more Hezbollah leaders. We have these stories and more at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to the Matt Murphy Show. We are rocking and rolling today. Matt is going to be on the drive with Brian Wilson, and it's going to be awesome. I know this because I love Matt Murphy. So Zach on the Super Talk Members Nutrition text line says this. I actually agree with Zach. Wow, I am shocked and amazed. What happened to personal responsibility? If you understand what you're signing up for, then take responsibility. What really needs to happen, if anything, from the government is financial education, work stops, seminars. I would also like to see all high schools and community college require a financial course to graduate. Amen.
Yes. High school should have a tax class just for taxes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's shocking they don't still.
And I'm a policy nerd, worked on Capitol Hill, and I can tell you that the laws that have been passed regarding to informing consumers, it used to be more the case that, like, you know, in the fine print buried in there was what your adjustable rate could go up to, right? And so people just threw it away and didn't notice, and then they'd not pay their balance, and then you got a huge interest bill. Okay, that's not right, because that's sort of like a sleight of hand. So I'm all for the government saying, hey, you got to inform consumers. You got to tell them. And now it's literally in big font. When you go to a credit application, any one of them, from a home mortgage to a car loan to a personal line of credit,
some are highlighted.
Literally, they are in by statutory requirement. Huge letters. And then if you choose to proceed as a conservative, I think that's on you. I'm not mad at you because you make that choice, but that's a deal you're making with somebody else. We got to take a break. We'll get back. I think Senator Hagerty is going to join us. And we'll wrap this up first because I think this is really important. I'm Cameron Smith. This is the Matt Murphy Show. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
2:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. Right now in our nation's capital, a new Secret Service report released today admits communication and drone failures before the Trump rally assassination attempt in July. Acting Director Ronald Rowe Jr. said,
It's important that we hold ourselves accountable for the failures of July 13th and that we use the lessons learned to make sure that we do not have another failure like this again.
At least 5 Secret Service officials involved in planning Trump's Butler rally put on administrative duty. Meanwhile, in our nation's capital, the House approved a bill to require the same level of protection for major presidential candidates as sitting presidents. It now goes to the Senate. Israel's defense forces say Hezbollah leader Ibrahim Akil was killed in an airstrike in Lebanon today. Marcus Moore reports from Beirut.
Israel's IDF spokesperson, he said that the commanders that they struck were gathering underground and that Hezbollah was planning to invade communities in northern Israel and take residents hostage.
Now, the person killed today was a member of Hezbollah's Jihad Council and is thought to have played a role in the 1983 bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. Dirty laundry coming out in London, where lawyers say former Harrods boss Mohammed Al-Fayed abused young women and girls. The allegations coming after the screening of a BBC documentary. Here's more from Tom Rivers.
Dozens have come forward alleging rape and sexual abuse at the hands of the one-time owner of the famous London department store. Attorney Bruce Drummond describes the Egyptian-born businessman, died last year at the age of 94, as a monster.
This is one of the worst cases of corporate sexual exploitation that certainly I, and perhaps the world, has ever seen. It was absolutely horrific.
The alleged victim said to be as young as 15.
That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Welcome back. I'm Cameron Smith. We've had a great show today, and I want to put a button on the conversation about interest rate caps and free markets. When I was a young attorney on the Senate Judiciary Committee, my wife looked over at me one night and said, you know, I want to go see my mama. And at the time, we needed a mattress. Our mattress was so bad, it was sunken in the middle. At night, we would roll into each other. Because I was a poor hill staffer in a very expensive city, and I said, sweetie, you got a choice. We can either sleep better or you can go see your mom. Now, I could have gotten a credit card. I could have said, well, let's put it on credit and let's do it that way. But we were poor as church mice. And we said, nah, you know, we'll find another time to go, but the bed's a priority. And so we made tough choices. And that's where conservatives need to adhere to that principle of individual responsibility. That it's not the government's job to come in and fix things. So that's where I am. I have yet been persuaded that rate caps are a good idea. I am really excited about our guest that is coming on. Senator Bill Hagerty is here to join us. And I will tell you one of the most exciting things that I have about Senator Hagerty is he is decidedly not controversial, represents me well, and he makes politics less exciting because he minimizes the role of government. Senator Hagerty, great to have you on.
Cameron, it's great to be with you. Thank you. I appreciate that introduction.
Yeah, well, so here's my question that I wanted to discuss with you is win, lose, or draw, regardless of what happens in the elections. This isn't a prognostication. I'm a policy nerd, and I want to know, where do you think conservatives need to go consistent with conservative principles in terms of policy? Like, what's next for us?
Well, Cameron, I mean, you know me, and in my background, I've been a business person all my life. Frankly, yeah. I learned from the best. I started my career at a place called the Boston Consulting Group, which was founded by a Tennessean named Bruce Henderson. Yeah, Bruce Henderson was, basically the king of free market theory, and markets have the most incredible ability to resolve issues for society, certainly far better than central planning government. Can you imagine Kamala Harris making a decision that's even the correct one and even directionally getting something right? But that's exactly where the Democrats want to take us. And Republicans, I think, broadly need to rely on markets to solve our problems. And here's the issue, though. The Democrats have so screwed up our economy that it's going to take a while to get back to that place. So
what's step one? How do we start?
Well, I think the first thing that we do, and again, this is going to require a change in the executive branch, but I've seen the power of this, and that is a laser focus on clearing out the sclerosis in the regulatory body in Washington.
Amen.
You have bureaucracies that are just completely out of control. You know this from your time in Washington yourself, Cameron. These bureaucracies think they report to no one. I was talking to the Democrat Commerce Secretary, and she told me she thinks the building doesn't believe they work for her. Well, how do you think we felt as Republicans when I was in the Trump administration? These bureaucrats are completely out of control. They issue regulation upon regulation upon regulation. I have industry coming and talking to me saying, we can't even get a meeting with the department that's trying to regulate us. It's just beyond the pale. You've got people with academic credentials, I presume, but with no real legitimate experience in the industries that they're trying to regulate, and we need to clear that out. That will unleash American prosperity in a way that will be staggering, I think. I'm going to share a statistic with you.
Hang on, I want to ask you a real quick question here. Have you heard of the REINS Act?
Yes.
So you were speaking my love language because I wrote the initial version of the REINS Act for Jeff Davis. So
that's great.
He was a representative from Northern Kentucky, and so I'm all about Congress assuming more authority for the regulatory state. But tell me your statistic.
And with overturning Chevron by the Supreme Court, I think we're moving back in the right direction. But let me give you an example, and this will just underscore the sclerosis in government. You know how bad the European Union is. There is no regulatory body that's more out of control than the EU Commission. Unelected bureaucrats setting regulation upon regulation upon regulation
everywhere
in Europe. What has happened since the EU came into being? Their entire economy over all of those years has grown by 6%. 6%.
Did I hear that right? 6? S-I-X?
6%. Yes, S-I-X. We were about the same size. Our economies were about the same size when the European Union was formed. Their economy's only grown about 6%. We have almost doubled here in the United States, and that's in spite of our regulatory bureaucracy. So you can imagine the break that regulations have put on their economy has been stunning, and it's caused. You think about where inflation has gone. They're far poorer today than they were when the EU was formed. That's what you get with the regulatory body that is out of control. And what we have in Washington right now are a group of bureaucrats that would love to be even more regulatory than the European Union. I mean, it's almost like a competition. They admire Europe. I think Europe should be an example of exactly what you should not do. And we've got an opportunity, if we can take the executive branch, to really rein this in. With Chevron, as I mentioned, the Supreme Court overturned the thesis, I guess, if you will, that somehow in a judiciary proceeding that the judiciary should be deferential to the agency that put in place a particular rule or regulation or an interpretation thereof. And instead of being deferential, we should be questioning it like hell. And that puts responsibility back on the Congress. And I think this is where you want to go. That puts responsibility back on the Congress to be far more clear and far more specific about what we want these agencies to do and not to do. And I want to emphasize the latter part of that statement.
How do you deal with the, turning a little bit to inflation? One of the drivers has been out of control federal spending. Like it's unquestioned, it's there, particularly in the post-COVID era. How do you convince your colleagues, hey, we got to eat some broccoli here. We've got to come up with a game plan to reduce our deficit spending because it's just insane.
Cameron, it's really interesting that you used eat your broccoli as a term, because I met with a team yesterday struggling with how do we deal with the fact that Medicaid and Medicare expenses are just running out of control. You think about it. Interest on our debt has now exceeded the defense budget.
Right.
Mandatory is what they call it. Mandatory spending is almost triple what discretionary spending, which is what we spend our time on in Congress. It's almost tripled what discretionary spending is. We've got to take a hard look at what's happening in the mandatory spending side. And the biggest, most out of control component of that are healthcare expenditures. So I was meeting with a group yesterday, and you may have heard of Casey Means. He and his sister have written done some incredible research and written about getting Americans healthier. And we started talking through the system impact of that. If we can get Americans, and I think about this in a very parochial sense, Tennesseans need to be healthier too. I don't want to dictate whether you can have a large or a small size Coke, but if we can create the right set of incentives to get people healthier, we can dramatically reduce the expenditures that we put in place for health care. And in doing that, I think we start to get at the root problem. The other aspect I'd focus on as well is how do we grow our economy much faster? How do we get the revenue side to improve? We don't need more taxes. Frankly, Art Laffer, a great Tennessean, has demonstrated that fewer taxes, that lower tax rates, I should say, will generate more tax revenue. President Trump proved that with the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We lowered rates and increased government revenues at the same time because we unleashed more of the animal spirit of the American economy. That's where we need to head to start to address this. The Democrats are going in precisely the wrong direction.
Yeah, well, I think that you're right on there. In terms of, I've long been, small businesses are the engine here, right? Like we've known that for a long time.
2/3 of, yeah.
That's the job creation engine. How do you get government out of their way? Because it's hard to start a business. A lot of businesses fail. I've done it. It's tough. How do you help that cohort do what it does well without just government handouts?
I think it's getting the government out of the way. And the folks in Washington and this particular Democrat administration think they can come in and pick the winners and losers and subsidize industry. That's not the way to do this at all. The way to address this is get out of the way from a regulatory standpoint and from a tax standpoint, create the incentives for people to invest in small businesses. So lower capital gains tax rates, not increase them. The Biden administration, the Harris administration wanted double capital gains taxes. The result of that's going to be a complete disincentive to invest in what would be a long-term capital gain. And if you think about small businesses, these are long-term bets that have to be made.
Right.
Entrepreneurs have the capacity to do this in America, but they need the capital. And what we need to do is have capital-friendly tax policy that will support and incentivize capital investment, not picking specific companies, but just making it easier to invest. That will grow the economy, that will put us on the right trajectory, and that will help small and medium-sized businesses more than anyone.
How do you deal with the reality, and I'll just put it bluntly, that we've known some of these things for a while, right? That Americans are unhealthy. We've known that we spend like we're drunk in Washington. We've known the regulatory state is wild. And the challenge is, I think Republicans have tried to do this with, 51% of the country, like very bare majorities. How do you pull a Reagan and get some of those centrist Democrats and other folks to come and say, hey, these are the right ideas. We got enough to make it happen? Because from my viewpoint, we know the right ideas. We just haven't been able to figure out the tactical approach to bring them to bear.
Yeah, and sadly, the tactics have been, if we want to get something we really want done across the finish line, we've had to give in to Democrats because of the way the Senate is constructed. We have to give in to Democrats to get them across the line because you need 60 votes to get anything done, as you well know. And what we have to do is find those, as you mentioned, those centrists, the people that will actually vote for the good of the country as opposed to the good of the party.
Right.
And work with them to make things happen. Here's what I'm afraid of. Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema are both leaving the United States Senate. Were it not for those two, we would have lost the filibuster. We would have two new states right now, Puerto Rico and District of Columbia.
Right.
If it weren't for those two, we would have 13, 14, 15 people sitting on the Supreme Court right now because they would have packed the court with Democrat, left-leaning loyalists. If it weren't for them, we would have a very different America right now, and they're leaving. And Adam Schiff, my least favorite candidate on the dial right now, he's going to be the next senator from California, and he's laid the plan out very clearly. If they get control, if they come into office, they're going to blow up the filibuster. They're going to rule this with a 51-vote majority. They're going to add new states. They're going to add new Supreme Court justices, and they're going to make this country a socialist nation. They already have us on that path with the Kamala Harris administration. Adam Schiff wants to basically bring it to a conclusion. He would even embarrass Karl Marx if Marx were alive today.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Left-leaning and socialist they are. Yeah.
So one question, one final question I really want to get your thoughts on, and several of the listeners have asked the same thing. So what do you think in terms of your viewpoint? There's a number of folks that want to lead this charge in the Senate. Assuming that Republicans do well this cycle, I think it's a favorable cycle in the Senate. Who's going to be the leader of the charge? Who do you think are some candidates for that leader role that, have what it takes to help move us in the right direction? I mean, do you have any sort of prognostication? Because people seem to really be interested in that issue.
No, I understand the interest, but and I've talked to several people who are interested, Cameron, and without naming names, because I think it's premature to do that, here's what I've told every one of them. Your relationship with, hopefully, President Trump in his 47th, in the 47th presidency of the United States, your relationship with President Trump is going to be absolutely critical to my decision as to who should be leading the United States Senate, because we will have roughly 100, 200 days. You know how it works.
Right.
We're going to have to come in and use the reconciliation process at the same time that the executive branch is issuing executive orders to try to right the ship, to try to undo the terrible things that the Biden-Harris administration have unleashed on the economy, get us back into full-scale oil production and gas production, basically stop the non-enforcement, if you will, of sanctions, put Iran back in the box.
Amen.
Make peace evolve in the Middle East again. Deal with Vladimir Putin and Zelensky in a way that's best for American interest, and calm the waters here at home, because crime is through the roof, and that's because the border has collapsed. We got to deal with that as well. We've also got a tax package that's coming through. We're going to have to address that in the Senate. But there are many things that we can do on the reconciliation side that need to be locked arm in arm with the executive orders that will come from President Trump. And that coordination is going to be the best prescription for fixing what ails America right now. It's got to happen, but we need the right leadership to make it work.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, this conversation's inspired my confidence. I am very skeptical on a lot of things, but the detail and the focus on the issues, man, I'm excited that you represent me. I really am.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you very much.
And for all of our listeners, please call your friends in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Montana, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin. Tell them to get Arizona. Tell them to get out and vote, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time.
All the best, Cameron. Thanks.
Bye. So, guys, I'm encouraged by that. When I ask these questions, and a lot of times I get sort of fluff answers, I thought those were very specific. Man, getting Americans healthy again. I was at the doctor's this morning. I'm down about 30 pounds, and he was very excited. So was I. I saw this. And when you look at the overall impact of, folks that aren't healthy on our economy, on this, I hadn't thought about it that way before. That's really, really encouraging. So thank you to Senator Hagerty for joining us. We got to take a break and wrap this bad boy up. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to The Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7.